Hello, I'm Greg Rumsey, and welcome to our Acceptance Sabbath School members and to others who might be looking in at this video. I am representing the Missions Committee of Acceptance Sabbath School. This quarter, we are focusing our mission efforts on the work in Laos. Those of you who were here in person in Sabbath School on January the 15th will recall that we had a nice mission report that day from Dave Ekins, who represents Laos for God, and he has long been a champion of supporting the mission work in Laos. He's also a volunteer with ASAP Ministries, which helps to fund the work that's being done there. Well, on the 15th, Dave gave a nice mission report to our Sabbath school, and it worked fine for those who were here. But if you were trying to watch online that day, you may remember that you only saw the video. You didn't hear any sound during that mission report. We have figured out what went wrong, and so we have invited Dave to come back and present this mission appeal once again. And we'll put this online so that everybody can see it. Thank you for your support of our special projects, which received about $11,000 last year in offerings from our Acceptance Sabbath School members. And just an interesting side note, about 60% of that amount was given through online giving. And for those that aren't aware of that option, you just go to thecollegedalechurch.com and then click on the Giving tab up at the top and follow the instructions. You can use that for special projects offerings to Acceptance, as well as your regular tithe and offerings to the church anytime through the year. So Dave, thank you for coming back, and we look forward to hearing more about what's happening in Laos and how we can help.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for Acceptance Sabbath School for inviting me here again. Acceptance Sabbath School has been one of the longest involved Sabbath schools since we started Laos for God projects around 2016. So I really appreciate the Lord's blessing through you and what you've done to help the people in Laos. When I first started thinking about projects for this quarter, one of the projects that came up was that they needed Sabbath school lessons for Lao children. In Laos, as in many Asian countries, children don't get the emphasis in Sabbath schools that we do here, and so they had never had any Sabbath school lessons for Lao children ever in the history of the work of the Adventist Church. In January 2020, a AFM missionary started using these Sabbath school lessons, and they've been working ever since to translate them and get more available. It's a good evangelistic method for parents as well as children, because a lot of these parents haven't been Adventists very long, and their grounding in SDA faith is not what we might wish. So these lessons will really help the children and the parents and give the children something to have in Sabbath school. Okay. There's 4 different levels that they want to work on. So far, they've been working on the beginners, and you can see the cost of getting these translated and printed. It's not cheap, but it's very necessary and will bear a lot of fruit for the Lord's kingdom, I think, because of the better grounding in Adventist beliefs that the children will get. So they want to use kindergarten lessons, primary, and eventually juniors. But they've started, as I said, with beginners already. The second thing that would benefit from our help is to help some of these people that are being persecuted. In Laos, persecution is a daily activity that the members are suffering. And the latest example of this came at the end of November. 10 Adventist families were kicked out of their village because they would not renounce their faith in Christ. And remember, these are young Adventists. They haven't been known about Christ very long because they come from a spirit-worshiping background. And the spirits are scared of God's Spirit because they understand, the spirits understand that God's Spirit is infinitely powerful. So they couldn't let the Adventists stay in the village. So they kicked them out, gave them a piece of forest land, and told them to go live there. So all through December, 58 people, 10 families, were living in the forest under canvas roofs, no electricity, no water, just what water they could haul in. And they were really suffering. Well, as soon as that happened, God worked on some donors, and somebody donated $15,000 to help build houses for these people and start to give them some kind of shelter. One of the first things they started to do was build a new house of worship. They can't call it a church because you have to get a permit to build a church. And in that communist environment, getting a permit for a church is really difficult. But if you build a house, then you can worship in that. So they've started immediately. And that was the thing that really impressed me about these people. This is just a few days after they were kicked out of there, they started building this house of worship. And because of the $15,000 that somebody donated, they've started to build houses. And I don't know what the state of making more houses is, except that you can see some of these pictures here. They were taken of just a few weeks ago, and they're getting houses. Of course, a house in Laos doesn't have to be quite up to our standards in this country because the climate is quite a bit less severe. But May is coming with rainy season, and so we need to get the houses in decent shape before then. So that's one thing that the money will be spent for, is new houses for believers. And the other project that they've decided to do is sanitary toilets. Keep in mind that the village kicked the Adventists out and don't want them there anymore. And they were quite hostile to the Adventists. Since then, the Adventist leadership from Vientiane, the capital, has gone there and talked to the village people that kicked the Adventists out and made better relationships. And we offered to build sanitary toilets for the village that kicked them out. This is the principle of heaping coals of fire on the heads of the person that's persecuting you. And these silent preachers will keep preaching the gospel for all the time to come. And they figure it's about $10,000 to build those. There's 50, I think they need about 50 sanitary toilets for the village, and put some water in so that they can use the toilets. I asked Kamsai, the pastor that I communicate with over there mostly, I said to him, does this idea of silent preachers work? And he replied, yes. And he gave the example of this Lavong village. When they first built their church there, the villagers used to bring the police to try to stop them from building the church and worshiping in it. So then the Adventists said, we'll help them build a clean water system and then toilets. Now, Lavang Village is one of the best villages where the Adventist Church is really making progress. Now we can worship there without persecution. The authorities even allowed us to conduct evangelism meetings, which is against the law. That's one thing that's specified, is that you can't do proselytization, but they're doing it. And they held an open baptism in one place. In some places where they have baptisms, they have to do it in the middle of the night in somebody's toilet in order to not be caught by the authorities. But here in the Long Village now they can baptize people openly. So they baptized about 150 members in Lavang Village last year, which, if you stop to think about it, the entire Adventist population in Laos is around 2,000 members. So to baptize 150 in one village was really amazing. And we trust that the same thing will happen in Hart Village, where we're working on getting these things ready, that the Lord will work and bring more people in. And that's the purpose of all this work, is to bring more souls into Christ and have them be rooted and grounded in the Adventist Church and in their faith in Jesus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave, for helping us to see the needs in Laos, and the Lord has interesting ways and means of advancing the gospel commission, doesn't he? And thank you again to our Sabbath School members for your interest in helping to reach people with God's truth. And remember, our focus for this first quarter will be on these needs and projects in Laos. Thank you again, and have a good day.